Hello and welcome back to the channel of Truth, Trust and Transparency. Today I wanted to dedicate a video to the power of compound growth, and I wanted to break down, in my opinion, what are the three stages of compound growth and why it is important for you as a property investor to hold long term so that we can access the compounding zone. So for today's example, I have reduced it to be super simple. So obviously the principles can be applied throughout your portfolio, and no matter how big it is or how small it is, you'll see what I mean by the end of the clip when we walk through the practical examples of each of the zones and the numbers used. Now, currently at the moment, what I'm seeing with a lot of people that I'm talking to around that $500,000 mark is still where there is a lot of value in the investment space, and can get you into quite a few markets. It's funny that I'm saying that because I can only remember quite a few years back where that was still, starting with a 3. Sometimes there were areas in the high 2. But for this particular circumstance, I'm going to show you what happens on a $500,000 purchase when it is held for 10, 20 and 30 years. Now, I personally think of the compounding effect, and for those that don't know, compounding effect is quite simple and it is explained quite simply. If you have a $500,000 house, you buy for $500,000 and it goes up 10%. In the next year, it's now worth $550. We agree? Of course. The compounding effect is in year 2, so that's the first year. In year 2, you have the compounding effect of the 550 growing instead of the 500. So obviously, if 550 grows 10% again, let's just say for round numbers for my maths for YouTube, then I'm earning $55,000 of compound growth in that second year. In the first year, between 50 to 55, I only earned 50. So that is the compound growth in effect. But what a lot of people forget and don't realize is just how much this takes off from years 20 to 30. And I'm going to demonstrate it for you today. So here on the left-hand side is the value of the property. We're starting at the bottom at $500,000 because that is the price that you're getting to the market on year 0. Along the bottom, we're running the time frames of 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years. Now, when we first buy that property, not only is it hardest to own, it's obviously when it is the cheapest, and it's when we're kicking things off. So in the first 10 years of owning that property, I see a lot of people try to buy, time the market, sell, get out, redeploy capital. If you crunch the numbers, and I will in probably a next video, you'll see that that often doesn't make sense compared to if you were just holding. And the reason is because you have the compounding effect at play. If you just had that 500 grand earning that return, then the numbers might equal up. But as you will see, because that 500 is growing to 550 and beyond, it makes sense most of the times to be able to buy and hold for as long as possible. Now, for this particular circumstance, I have used the growth rate of 6%. Not unrealistic, Australian average, blah, 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 blah. I'll keep it conservative so I don't get attacked in the comments. $500,000 the first year. Now, what happens if we buy only that? We only buy one $500,000 property. Think about this if you're in your 20s or 30s watching this video. You buy one $500,000 property. You sit on that and you hold that property for the first 10 years. After 10 years, that property is now worth $844,000. Conservatively, 6% growth rate over 10 years. Your $500,000 property is now worth $844,000. You think that's okay, right? The amount of money that you've made in those 10 years is $344K, which is the difference between 500 and 844. Do we agree? Of course. I say this is the danger zone. Why? Is because the 6% is not only guaranteed, but even at that 340K, let's do some quick numbers. I've got on 500K, I've got stamps and I've got potentially a little bit of LMI, which might total 50K in total that I don't get back when I sell a property. So think of taking 50 grand off that and what it goes down to. It goes down to 296K. You know, on that 296K, I've then got selling costs, which could be 20K. I then go down to maybe 270, and then I've got my taxes if I sell, and I've owned it obviously longer than a year, so I get the CGT discount, but then I still lose 25% of it. So 340K, it might only equal 200 or 220 by the time that you sell it, which when you annualize it over 10 years isn't great. Now, year on year on that property, so from 500 to 550 and so on and so on, at a 6% growth rate, the amount of money that you make per year on that property is anywhere between 30 to 40 grand. It peaks out at about 47 grand in year 10. So you've made 40 in that 9th to 10th year, you've made 47K. Okay? So that's cool. It's almost 10% on the original amount, but that's because you have that amount compounding year after year after year. The 10 to year 20 time frame is the next one up. I call this the growth zone because we've passed the danger zone. We get into that good growth zone. We've now got a property worth 844K, and we're going to hold it and ride it all the way up. At year 20, this property is worth 1.51. Not bad. It is now worth 1.51. What is really cool is that per year in this 10 to 20 month, I make anywhere on that property 50,000, 50 to 85K in capital growth per year at 6%, and because of the value of the property. Now think about it now, 844, when that's increasing by 6, we have the compound effect at play. But I'm making anywhere between 50 and it maxes out at $85,000 per year in that 19th to 20th year to make it 151. Now this is where it gets interesting. In this second 10 years, so in that first 10 years, I've made 344 grand. In that second 10 years, I have made $666,000 in just that 10 years. So you can see the compounding effect between the first 10 years and the second 10 years has almost doubled. I've made $666,000 and I've made 344. So it's almost doubled in the second 10 years. And the best part about it is now my asset plus them together, I've made pretty much $1 million for just holding that for 20 years. Now, a lot of people get really excited and this is where they sell out. But my friends, what you need to understand and remember, it is not until you hit years 20 to 30 into the compound zone does this thing go off its tits. So I'm worth $1.5 million at year 20. By year 30, so I'm worth $1.5 million. Just trust me here. Year 20, I'm worth the one property, I've made $1 million. Now let's think about it this way. You're paying interest only. You're not paying down any of that debt. You still have a $500,000 loan against this property. You've made $1 million clear. It's worth 1.5. You've got 500 debt. You've made $1.1 million. This third 10-year period, the property increases in value to $2.7 million. Meaning, in this last 10 years, you make $1.2 million. Per year, you make anywhere between 85 grand, which is obviously this amount, to up to 150K of growth. Year 29 to 30, you're making $150,000 of growth. Remember, that's almost 30% of the original asset value. You're making 85 to 150 grand per year, and you've made $1.2 million in that final third. If you plus the first 20 years together, you're only getting $1 million. In the last 10 years of owning that asset, you're making more money than you are the first 20 years. So when there's buyers agents and there's people out there saying you need to sell quickly, recycle the equity and go again, one thing I'd probably have in mind that it is a good chance that the people are telling you this, how are they incentivized? Well, if someone gets paid to find me a property and they're telling me a narrative of, oh, you need to sell so I can find you another property. It's kind of starting to sound like that their plan is not for me, but more for them. It's a great business to say, oh, sell every 1 or 2 years because we need to recycle the equity and go again and again and again. Ladies and gentlemen, 30 years, I've went from $500,000 asset to 2.7. In the last 10 years, I've made $1.2 million. In the 20 years before that, I've only made a total of 1.1. So this growth and compound zone is the most important reason we buy and hold. It is the most important reason of property investing, that final 10 years, years 20 to years 30. But the issue is you can't skip this period here. You can't skip it. So you need to buy, hold, and wait, because years 20 to 30, my friends, that is where the fun happens. Think about this, $2.7 million. Think about if you just had maybe three of those. 2.7 million times it by 3, $8.1 million. $8.1 million. If you just had 3 properties, that's it. 3 $500,000 properties. $8.1 million portfolio. Your debt is going to be 1.5 mil. Oh my gosh. Your debt is going to be 1.5 mil. What's left? You were sitting equity positive quite easily. $6.6 million worth of equity that you can cash out and do whatever you want. You got retirement, right? Let's just say you're doing this at 30 years old to keep it numbers. You're 60 years old. You might sell the properties off, pay off your debt. You've got a little bit of tax, but look, $6.6 million worth of equity. Crazy, from 3 properties and 3 properties only. So the issue as well is people think that you need 20, 30, 50 properties to retire. $6.6 million in equity. We did it with 3 $500,000 houses today, and all we did was buy, wait and hold for it to reach the compound zone, years 20 to 30. Before you're thinking about selling, think about what I've shown you today, the power of the last 10 years. It is crazy. It is where you become a millionaire literally in 10 years. Especially if you had 3 of these, it would be phenomenal. Again, guys, any questions, please let me know. If not, I'll see you guys tomorrow.